You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the town of Swanzey.
Board here with them all. I'll begin with the roll call. Scott Self, that's me, I'm here. Richard Lane. Here. Jane Johnson.
Here.
Brandon Self will not be here. Michael York.
Yeah.
Victoria Ames.
Here.
And Sly Karasinski.
Here.
And alternate Steve Malone.
Here.
And Michael Scungio, alternate, and Brian Vertigel, alternate. Neither of those are here. I'm going to seat Steve for Brandon. And the agenda this evening, we have the approval of the April 13th minutes. The applications and public hearings, we have one planning board number 23-010, site plan review, Fieldstone Land Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of Lesser's Four Seasons Services, has submitted an application for site plan review to construct a commercial landscaping facility and attached multifamily housing on undeveloped land located at the junction of West Swansea Road and West Street. The subject property is shown at tax map 73, lot 12-2, and is in the business district. Upon a finding that the application meets submission requirements, site plan review regulations, the board will vote to accept the application as complete, and a public hearing may follow immediately or will be scheduled for a time and date certain. Under discussions and other business, we have site plan review regulations. We're just revamping our regulations. We have site plan reading workshop and any other business as may be required.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion now?
Yes, you may.
I want to move that at 8:30 this evening that we suspend everything, adjourn and carry on to the next meeting.
Okay, your motion is that the meeting will end at 8:30 and anything that hasn't been dealt with will be carried on to next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Steve Malone. Is there any further discussion? And all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And that will be that. Anything is outstanding, we will continue it to the next one. Okay, regional impact, or no, let's do the minutes there, April 13th minutes. Does anyone have anything on those? And if not, then a motion to accept as presented. Motion by Jane, seconded by Richard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Suppose. Okay, and regional. Okay, and regional impact vote. Any notify so anything that may have a regional impact on the Metro County. Nothing is on there that has regional impact, then they stating so. Okay, motion by Victoria that nothing on tonight's agenda requires us to notify surrounding towns. Seconded by Jane Johnson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And which brings us right up to application of public hearings, which is planning board number 23-010. And that's the Fieldstone Land Consultants on behalf of Lesser's Four Seasons Services. They've submitted an application for a site plan review, construct a commercial landscaping facility and attached multifamily housing on undeveloped land located in the junction of West Swansea Road and West Street. Property is next map 73, lot 12-2, business district. And first part, yeah, we will be deciding whether the application is complete. And if it is complete, we'll accept it as complete, and then we will move on to a public hearing. So if you would just go down the guidelines of what happened in the regulations as to the completeness of the application.
Services. Also with me tonight is John Lesser, who is the owner now. The application was submitted for landscape use with adjacent 5-unit building. We went before zoning board last week, got approved for 2 special exceptions for the 5-unit multifamily attached to the landscaping business. Also, the second special exception was home storage outside, which was just in the approvals for mulch, sawdust. There's a sauna facility back here. materials for landscaping that were all in these bulk storage areas. So those two were obtained and approved by the zoning board last week.
So just run down the checklist. That's all I need to do.
So we have name and address of the owner shown on the block here, and title block, and also listed as name here. Tax map and lot number listed on the title block, also shown on here. Letters, tax maps, and lot numbers listed on lots. North arrow written in graphic scale. So we have the north arrow here, written and graphic scale. So we have the written and the graphic scale right here. Name and address of the plat preparer, so that would be Fieldstone. Vicinity sketch, so the vicinity sketch in the right-hand corner. Names and addresses of the abutting landowners. On the existing conditions plan, we have them all listed out. We also submitted the butters list of the existing conditions as the full address and name of each butter with the tax map and lot number. Physical features of the land and land within 200 feet of the site. So we've located all physical features, including homes, Route 10 pavement, and infrastructure along West Street and the borders of the property. Here, perimeter boundary lines and lot area in square foot in acreage. So that's shown right here between these tax blocks. These are the outer perimeters here on the site plan. I highlighted them for to show this orange area here is the subject. Shape, size, location of existing structures on the site, and those are here, the dimensions and square footage. Location, name, and width of any existing and proposed roads on property, so that is the we've shown widths, but these are not technically. Identification of access from the site, public streets, site distances from the exit points, curb cuts, and proposed changes, if any. So there's 2 curb cuts on the project. One is directly on the Route 10. This was permitted with NHDOT, so with a driveway permit. As part of that permit, they check the site distances to exceed 400 feet in each direction. The other one is onto a town road, which is West Street. So it's the access. Location and number of parking and loading spaces. We have the parking spaces here along the front of the business. There's 9 there, and there's 8 in the rear that would service the body. Landscaping plan, so there's a separate plan just for landscaping. Those are the landscaping plan and details.
Yep.
Location, type, and nature of existing and proposed lighting. That's also shown on the full sheet by itself, which is the lighting, full cutout fixtures, and details for the natural features such as water bodies, ledge outcropping, and wetlands. So there is a wetland on this portion here, northwest corner, bisecting that's outlined here. That's the only wetland that's on the property. There's no ledge up. Existing and proposed grades and topographic contours intervals. This grading sheet that shows our existing
Take your time.
means of providing water. So utilities are shown. Coming off of West Street would be water and sewer. Shown there. Much better. Thank you. So that's the water supply, surface drainage patterns. So that's shown on the grading sheet here. So we have arrows with grades that are proposed. It's pretty flat. I know most people probably know the site, but it's fairly level. Copy of certification by a licensed septic designer, the existing system. So there is no existing system and there is no proposed. It's going to be municipal sewer. Copy of certification by, sorry, location and type of proposed sewage. Shown for here connecting to West Street sewer. Location of existing and proposed on-site well showing a 75-foot radius. At this time, we do not have a well. I'll go with that. So we're planning on connecting to the West Swanzey Water Company. They are yet to provide information back on if there's enough pressure and volume to connect. If not, then there would be a proposed well. Soil survey data, so that is shown on our conditions plan. So we have soils. Test pit data that was submitted for soils shown across the site. And it was all one type of soil that was done based on Cheshire County soil map.
It's there somewhere.
Right here.
I read it. Yep.
Yep, right here, and our test pit data verifying accurate information. So, location of existing and proposed easements, deed restrictions, and covenants. There are no restrictions in the property line setbacks shown here. Architectural plans, it's submitted. New setup.
Okay, great. Thank you. The board members? Is it complete enough to go to a public hearing?
Yeah, I move that we can go to public hearing. We have enough information to go from there.
Okay, motion by Michael York that the application is complete and ready to go to a public hearing. Is there a second? Second by Richard Lane. Is there any further discussion on the completeness? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so now we're going on public hearing. I will open up the public hearing and make the presentation.
Thank you. So as discussed, this portion here to the north is a proposed landscape business. There'll be an interior retail shop where you have a showroom, and to the rear, there'll be a mechanic space shop where you can have larger shelving. Put that shown in the landscaping plan. These revised plans that we've provided tonight, minor changes from what was initially submitted. The biggest changes are based on the planning board data. So we added a sidewalk as requested. So prior, we had a sidewalk along the front of the apartment buildings here. It was requested, and in the condition of approval, we had a connection point from that sidewalk to the West Street side. That's been added. Also, a sidewalk connecting between the driveway here for the residential side to the dumpster pad here, so that residents can walk directly across on the paved surface and utilize the same dumpster. So there'll be one dumpster on site for both commercial use and for residential use. We've also added notes regarding covered salt storage, as that was also a condition. So those are the biggest changes from what was initially submitted to the planning board versus those changes. So those three items listing the materials that was already on the plan prior. But listing more on the salt shed, that the salt shed would be built to what the town salt shed standard is, and also referencing the DES best management practices. So DES has items, guidelines to follow for salt storage areas. So that's been noted on. So those three items that were listed as conditions of approval for the zoning board are added on these plans.
Okay.
So overall, the outdoor storage bulk items are here along the northern border. This will be a paved surface. So in front of these bins, someone could pull in with a trailer, have it loaded by staff. So from Lesser's business, they would load their vehicles. The trailer would not be able to load. They would sell bulk materials, mulch, stone, those type of items. Very similar to what Roundup had in Swanzey. Very similar types of items. Storage for trailer equipment and parking to the rear of the lot here. And pre-sold materials and job surplus storage. Like retaining walls and other items that we're doing plants or plantings for customers. Those will be stored in that back area. Salt storage bin here, so that's been called out. That's going to end up being having impermeable surface, concrete, walls and covered, so we'll have a roof over it. We're gonna get into that. So that's based on the best management practices. Also, we're gonna detail out as part of the building permit package is how that's constructed. Meet with someone with the town, whether it's Mike or others, to get an idea on how the town barn is built as well, and have something similar. So that meets our zoning requirement. So on the south side, that is where the 5 apartments are located here. They are connected, so during the zoning board hearing, at that time, I thought it was gonna be a pergola, so it's between either a roof connection or pergola open rafter type. So now it's gonna be a roof connecting that, no walls, so it's open. They can have storage of display area for patio furniture, items of that nature out front, grills, that type of thing here. There's also next to the parking lot in the front here would also be display areas for outdoor amenities that they would sell to customers. So ultimately, the site is split into 2, trying to keep the commercial to the
Recording
north,
stopped.
coming off of the Route 10 driveway, 9 parking spaces here, 5 along the north wall, separating everything, and then residential off to the south. So the site really balances between where commercial is located on the north side and the east side of the property. This is all commercial. And then the west and the south side is residential. So the site kind of transitions in the same way where we put the residential near the existing abutting residential and the commercial near the abutting commercial residential. So that's site plan. Existing conditions, so we've submitted, that's the show what the site is now. As mentioned, there's a wetland in the upper northwest corner of the lot. It's fairly flat, we've got grass field in it. Grading and drainage plan, also utilities shown here. So stormwater is going to be handled by 2 methods. We're going to have the rain garden to the northwest here. That'll take from the north of the lot, drain here. It's connected with a pipe across the front to a grass treatment swale coming down to an infiltration basin in the southeast corner of the lot. This will also take drainage from the road, so there's currently 2 outlets that we're calling out for aprons, and that drainage calculation is involved in the sizing of this. Everything comes off of the building, comes to this area here, connects to here, creates, if it was to overflow in a 50-year storm, it can back up and there's an outfall to the wetlands, but it does not outfall in a 50-year storm according to.
Is that the purpose of that pipe, or is it the purpose of it to drain this way into that front swale?
Yeah, it's connected here, so this is fairly flat through here.
Yeah.
So during technically a 50-year and under, it's going to come to this front basin, also infiltrating in the rain garden in the back. During really high events, it can flow up this in the back and there'll be an outfall towards the wetland if needed. So it's sized for a 50-year storm. So if it ever exceeded a 50-year storm, it has an area to spill out, not towards the road or towards the residential areas, going into the woods.
And that transfer pipe is for that, right? Then
Correct.
What you're saying from the front storage area, it would go across through that pipe to that wetland in the back.
Correct. Yes. And we also have, where we added the sidewalk, there's curbing along here, the sidewalk, so there's now a catch basin that was not there before. We had a cross driveway culvert here to bring water from this side of the site to that, also that infiltration basin. That will now connect with a pipe to a catch basin and now fall the same as it did before. We set out the catch basin based on the curbing and the sidewalk that was there. Grading. Lighting plan. So lighting is full cutoff fixtures. On site, pretty minimal. Total of 7 fixtures. Building. Landscaping. There's substantial amount of landscaping proposed here. So the owner's looking, really wants to make this look nice longer. And we want the building style also to have frontage toward Route 10 to really make it look like commercial and business and attract people that way. And then the front and residential faces the other way. So between the amount of frontage along West Street, along Route 10, determine how many trees are on this corner here and along the frontage. So we're utilizing all these plantings that are here to make up our frontage requirements for trees. And then shrubs mixed in, and then where it abuts the residential along the rear here, there's currently no plantings. These are gonna be a 2-foot high soil berm with pine trees planted it. And that's based on our total square footage abutting the residential. So this will end up being screened with pine trees along the rear. The abutting trees that are right on the property line, so there's an 8-inch maple, there's a 24-inch oak tree, and there's a birch cluster that's all right here. Those all remain, and then we have a stockade fence that runs along here. So the stockade fence will be 6 foot in height, so that's a solid fence to provide screening and separation between the abutting property that's residential and the commercial residential. There was a question on the one pear tree that was called out, so that was a species that's listed in the regulations for site plans as being a species that can be used. I know we used them on other sites in town and in Keene as well. But the Conservation Commission had a concern on that tree. The applicant's willing to change that for another species if so wanted. He's much more of an expert landscaping and trees, so if there's something that was wanted by the board, he'd be willing to change that. It's one tree. You can change that species out.
On the corner of West Street and Route 10, you have a tree. What's the setback from the edge of Route 10 to that tree? Or to that?
To center line, so building setback is 30 feet, and we're roughly centered on that. So
30 off of Route 10 to that corner.
Yep, to that tree.
West Street, yes.
Yes, from the right of way, you're 15 feet. This is a 30-foot setback. We're centered in the setback 30 feet. To edge of pavement, you're probably 45.
I couldn't see the numbers.
Yep.
There, I'd be concerned about oncoming traffic if you're trying to come out of West Street. That's all.
Yeah, so the edge of pavement, you're actually up right here. So even the stop mark or the stop sign is well in forward of these trees and plantings.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but West Street and Route 10, there is a school stop right there.
That was one of the reasons for the zoning board wanting the connection for sidewalks.
Well, I'm not sure because those apartments are not very rarely gonna have kids in them.
Yep.
But there are several kids that go back and forth to catch the bus there. Concern is, and it probably make more sense that where that tree is in the corner, if they have a little thing there for a school bus waiting area. You see what I'm saying? Right there in that corner, right there. It'd be better to have, instead of having a tree there, in my opinion, we should have a little school bus stop right there because the bus does stop right on that corner. For safety sakes for the children mostly. And somehow,
Buses are stopping there now on it.
yeah,
Without
they
that.
have been for quite some time, yes. Right on that.
This project isn't putting any kids probably in there.
No, but I know they're not probably gonna put any kids in there, but that's a concern of safety with the school bus stopping there.
Excuse me. I think that concern should be addressed perhaps to the bus company, and they should stop further in West Street, because stopping on the corner of Route 10 is not
Well,
safe anywhere.
The high school doesn't go up West Street, it goes down, it comes down south.
Well, they
and
need to
stops.
find a different pickup spot, if that one's dangerous.
Well,
I
we'd be
don't
with
know
this
why they
project-
would pick up kids on the corner of Route 10. In any case,
Well, there's
That's
several,
all.
there are several stops along Route 10 for children.
They stop right on Route 10, don't they?
Yes.
They don't go down West.
Well,
Right on.
there is one that goes up West Street, that's an elementary one. But he doesn't stop right there. The one for the high school stops right there, West Street and Route 10. A little after 7 o'clock in the morning. I know, I catch him every time I want to go out. He's there.
There's also potential sidewalk improvements along Route 10 that could be
Potential,
coming in
yes.
that. If they're stopping along Route 10, maybe that's part of that project with a grant to have a bus stop incorporated.
I don't- Are we putting sidewalks right that area?
It's proposed, isn't it?
It's proposed, it hasn't been adopted by the state
Yeah.
for the 10-year plan yet.
Yeah.
Bus stops are not currently part of that improvement project, but I would say, Mr. Lesser would not be allowed to place a bus stop on that corner because it would be in the front setback. And nothing is allowed to be put in this first 30 feet on Route 10.
Okay, so we just need to be aware that there is a school bus stop there.
Sarah, your, one of your notes, with the minutes from the zoning board speaks of the narrowing of Route 10 and the cross marks. Is this what you're referring to,
Yes.
part of that project down the
Yeah.
road?
Yeah.
There's a sidewalk all along West Street here. The only change to the sidewalk is where the curb cut is. We're providing connection point with that sidewalk there. And then these trees are certainly, more based on the total frontage. Those trees. The other submittals were all construction details. So this is the floor plan conceptually for the 5 apartments, single story, more of a, there's no doors along the Route 10 side for the residential, and that's trying to make all the residential go towards the rear and look more commercial and present the business to the Route 10 side to kind of separate those two uses further. So we have retail and display. This area here, including the 2 offices and restroom, is about 3,000 square feet in size. We have about 4,800 square feet in size for the garage workshop area. To the north, there's 2 overhead doors, and to the south, there's an overhead door. These are the elevations presented. So the metal panel siding, the first 36 inches, 3 feet here is going to be a base veneer stone around the building. For aesthetics, this is the Route 10 side on the bottom portion of the plan. This is what's going to face Route 10. So you have a gable end with a porch. That sidewalk runs along this frontage here, where this line and layer roof connection is here. This will be the open display area where you'd have patio furniture, grills, any items that were outdoor amenities. And then just windows along the Route 10 frontage on the residential side. So that's overall.
Can I just clarify something? Sorry, I'm not supposed to speak up, I'm sorry. We're not gonna be selling like patio furniture and grills, we're gonna be doing more hardscapes, outdoor spaces, patios, outdoor kitchens. Stuff that are built into the ground, like a hardscape. We're not gonna be selling like furniture and like grills that you buy at Home Depot, won't be anything of that. It'll be, I don't know if you guys have driven past Powell Stone and Gravel. In Winchendon, but it's kind of what I want to reference off of our building is to just kind of make it nice, bold, and beautiful. It's the face of our company, so draw a lot of attention with business.
Is there an area where shrubbery or trees and whatnot will be stored and or displayed?
Yeah, so we have in the rear here would be pre-sold job and supplies and storage area.
That's pre-sold. What about for sale?
We're not a nursery, so we're not selling plants. So if we have jobs that people need plants, we'll either go to Allen Brothers or Agway and pick up our materials there. And then we'll store them until our jobs, or pick them up that day and store them.
Do you do any processing of earth materials on site, like screening and loam?
No, nothing that will be screened during business to get the site up to where we need it to be. We might screen some loam because that's part of the construction process, yes, but we won't be screening. Correct. We'll be pulling material in from other sources and selling it.
So the pre-sold material and job surplus stuff, that's gonna be, the stones that you.
Yeah, pellets and whatnot, stone and that type of stuff. We won't have any screeners or that type of construction.
And then when you say trailer and equipment parking, so you've got a mini excavator and a loader and a bobcat, and those would be
It'll mostly be trailers, like our mow trailer, our dump trailer, our trailer to haul the equipment with. That'll mostly be stored outside. Everything else I'd like to store inside. That's kind of why I'm building the building. So the skid steers will be stored inside, and the excavator and that type of stuff. Some maybe work trucks overnight until they go out on the job next day.
Is there going to be any storage of, flammable, extremely flammable material?
Gas
Propane tanks and stuff like that?
Gas cans, really. 5-gallon gas can.
So the color of the building, what is that going to be? The color, the siding.
We haven't fully decided yet, but we would like to do some sort of like a gray or like a beige or something general, neutral, but nice, like a good look for the rest of the block. Because I know that there's some
So a neutral color.
a neutral color, something that's going to look nice with the veneer feature that we go with. Yes.
Is that gonna be metal pad?
Yes, so the top portion being metal panel siding and below being the veneer stone.
What will be the finishing on the residential buildings?
It matches around.
Not the same stone, I'll call it a kick plate. I don't know.
Yeah, just it'll wrap around the entire building, so front and back.
Something about the access into off of West Street. Is that going to be utilized also for commercial inference or not?
No, so this was brought up during the zoning board. There's a garage door on each side, so they could go through. It's not gonna be a traffic point of them using this. It's just gonna be if they pull something in here to work on in the shop and need to pull through the truck. We've shown that they would add a sign for caution trucks and then detail what that sign could be. That would just be building mounted here. So there's extremely low likelihood of commercial traffic coming through. This is dedicated really for residential. You might have once in a while they utilize this garage door to pull a truck in. It's not going to be a throughway from the commercial side through the building to the.
Now, you mentioned the repairing of their trucks. Now, they're not going to have broken down vehicles laying all over the place or anything of that sort, are they?
No, I mean,
No, we all of our trucks are in use. all
But you
registered.
understand our concern if you
I
look
do.
down the road.
Yes, and that was actually part of the sales agreement, is it would never be a mechanic junkyard. It's, the point of this building is, it's the face of our company. It needs to be beautiful, it needs to be nice, it needs to draw attention, good attention. If we have broken down trucks or equipment, it's gonna be ugly, so no. We don't have any, all of our trucks are inspected and registered for the road, so we don't store it, don't.
Technically, there'll be no heavy maintenance of trucks, just like,
Yeah, slight maintenance,
oil change, flat tire, or
Yeah.
whatever,
tire changes, and but that's all inside the shop. We'll have a spot to work on our trucks, but that's, I'm not a mechanic. I don't wanna be, I like working in the dirt, so.
Like they said, like, so.
Going back to your landscape, it says, you did test pits for surface, right?
yes, sir.
What's the water table depth there?
So in the,
I don't think it's very deep.
Because that's not mentioned anywhere, and I believe that is rather concerning.
yeah, so on our grading and drainage plan, we call out the test pit locations, also on our existing conditions. So this area here was targeted for the infiltration in the detention basin because we had seasonal high water is over 100 inches deep, so just over 8 feet was dug. That was the depth of the pit with no seasonal high. Up in this portion here, where it transitions on soils, much shallower, so we had 42 inches, and then it gets shallower and shallower, obviously, right back by this wetland area. So that was the target for doing more rain garden treatment area here and more infiltration and detention basin in the front, was because of that water table. So soils are less favorable towards the north portion of this, which is also noticed through the woods here, wetlands up through the portion that he designed.
And when was the date on those test pits?
The test pits were done this year.
Here in November, or October.
In October?
October.
It's one of the driest months of the year, isn't it?
Yes, but they go off of the soil conditions, and you can see what's called modeling and oxidation in the soils, and you can tell where the water line is. It's better to actually do a test pit when it's dry, because you can see in the soils without standing in a mud hole trying to figure out where it is. So you can get a cleaner side of the test pit hole and see where that side is. So certified soil scientist does that test pit, and they can determine where water comes up to based on the soil physical features. Similar to what's done, so that's for septic systems.
I have a couple of questions that concern the apartments. They're going to be used as seasonal or seasonal help, or are you coming in to work for your company?
No.
Okay. The second thing is, are you aware that you can only have 2 people residing in each one because of the square footage requirement of 200 per person? Okay. So at no time there would be a small family in there.
Right. Each unit is 576 square feet, so they are they're a single bedroom, so they're a small apartment.
I know that's small. I'm just saying that according to code, you have to have a minimum of 200 square feet per person. And where it's under 600, you cannot have 3 people in there.
Correct. It'd be, 400, and we're at 576, so we're over the minimum of the 400. And they're a single bed.
I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying.
Yeah, they can't have a third person. There's not even enough room for a third.
Who do you anticipate marketing these apartments to?
So
We're looking at traveling nurses. So that's the reason why we don't need a family in there, because I also would like to keep it simple.
So that landscape berm you said is how high?
2 feet.
2 feet high, and then the trees are gonna be how high? I mean, when you plant them.
And planting would be, 6 feet by 6 feet.
And you've got.
And as we know, Swanzey trees, pine trees grow very quickly and very large, but they can top those off and they'll fill in.
Yep.
So they tend to form a very good screening. That's what we've seen in other projects that are planted. Pretty quickly they fill in, you can top them and keep the height relatively well in check.
Just looking at the screening between the existing house right there. I know you have a fence, a stockade fence on the east side of that property there, but it looks like it ends right there, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, the fence runs right along this property. It does not wrap around here.
Now, I'm wondering why it doesn't wrap around there. Any particular reason other than maybe the cost or something?
No, not the cost. I'm not a huge fan of fences. I think having shrubs and plants are much better looking longevity. Of a fence is something that we could put up, but I just personally don't like the look of just a regular fence. I think having plants and shrubs, they also block noise a little better too, or something. So
I agree with that. too.
that's the reason why I actually didn't even want to do a fence, but having a fence there, I think will help. So
I'm thinking from the neighbors looking that way or annoying and stuff, those pines are gonna fill in at some point. They're about 24 feet in the center by the look of it. But for a while there, it's gonna be open, looking right out their backyard, right into your storage area for whatever they have.
and
that type of
and
stuff.
if that's something that we need to do, I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
Let's see what the board has to say about it, but I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
it might be-
I agree. I mean, when you put plants in, they're not mature height. So maybe for the first 10 years or so. I mean, that's, the fences nowadays, what, lifespan on a fence before changing is what, 15, 20 years? If you go vinyl, wood, still 10 years or so, maybe less. So at that point, it's gonna look raggedy and be replaced, where you plant once, you take care of it and last decent.
I would think you'd have both. I mean, the fence, and
Sure.
then when the fence is done, the plants are probably filled in by that. Be better.
Now, will that be a, I'm sorry,
Go right ahead.
will that be a wooden stockade or a, vinyl or what?
To be determined.
If it's wooden, the, what I call the good side,
Yes, facing,
facing.
absolutely,
neighbors.
absolutely, yep.
Is it gonna be gated, the access from Route 10? No.
Not unless we need to.
Yeah, and what are you gonna be using typically to load the materials?
Skid steer.
Skid steer, something like that?
Essentially the same, that side of is essentially ground up, like the
Yeah.
materials,
Pretty much the same as
the
what.
exact same business, yes. Except much cleaner, it's gonna be paved. Yeah.
I agree with Scott about the need to have a stockade fence along the border where the pine trees are. And just, you know, I mean, this, throughout Swansea, whenever we have a residence district running up against the business, we have to have, you know, sort of go to a higher level to protect the residential uses. So that's the thinking behind that.
Yeah, and that's what the tree count, that's why there's so many trees, that's based on the regulation for the, I think, the residential. The residential zone is right, so, but we carried that along. So many trees shown.
It's interesting though, you have those spaced like they're about 20 feet apart along the west, along the area where there is no stockade fence. And then once you get down to the area where there is a stockade fence, they're really gone together. There's much higher density of those.
Because the residential home is right here, so it's really just to thicken up the screening right near the home so that, you know, traffic turning in right here or exiting, they're completely blocked between tighter plantings and the fence. So that's why they're tighter, we taking them up in that.
So I guess I'm thinking, why would you not be as vigilant about screening on to the north of that same house? You're screening very carefully to the east of the house.
Yeah, so these, I mean, with the berm, so you're gonna have an earthen berm and then these trees on top. There's quite a bit of, and then really the salt area is like the small buildings that blocks it. You're not gonna have a lot of, there's not gonna be much for this storage. There's gonna be, you know, pallets and his materials in this corner. And the trailers parked here, so we have employee parking here. So that's blocked by the dumpster enclosure, by this salt enclosure. That's where they go. See, I don't see there's nothing here that would impact with lights or, you know, that they'd be looking at it. The stationary.
Yeah, it's not about lights. It's more about people living on the other side who are looking into commercial operation. Want some protection from that.
Right, which is why there's this many trees. It's based on the regulation to require that many trees because
Yes, our regulations are minimums, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we can ask for more if we want.
or we could, yeah.
So it's a 2-foot high berm that's, how broad is it going to be at the top?
Yeah, so we have at the top, we're carrying at least 4 feet at the top and we have it about 10 feet wide across here. So we have the line shown.
So that's, the line shows the summit of the
The
flat area
base
that's
of
at the
it.
top.
Yeah, those trees, I mean, that scale are 15 feet and diameter.
Which, so there's a lot of difference in this Austrian pine in terms of shape. Do you have a variety selected for that?
I haven't fully selected yet, no.
Because some of them are really narrow and, you know.
Yeah, I was
Like
I
a
was looking
column.
for more
Bushy.
bushy, yeah.
You mentioned employee parking on the back. Where's that indicated?
It's on the site plan. Kill all the parking lots here. We just did an outline, so if he parks here, so employee parking, he parks on here, the building. So there's no doors on this side, so
So,
As far as spaces go.
Yeah, it's not gonna be
They have-
dedicated, linear, so this is gravel out here. It's just gonna be, so he has 4 employees. This is more than enough space for about 6 to 7 vehicles. But it's not gonna be dedicated stripe spacing. The stripe spacing here are paved and those items would be, dedicated for customers coming in. But this might just be they park a vehicle there. So we just drew outlines of where he could fit trailers, parking equipment, so those blocks are shown here. But there's not gonna be striping of any nature saying, this is a parking space for a truck or a trailer, or it's a gravel surface.
Now, the salt storage area. That'll be a concrete block type, okay, is there any way you can put siding on it? Because that portion of it does not have a fence. And for 10 years until those bushes grow, he's gonna be looking at the back of your, cinder
It
blocks.
doesn't have a fence unless the planning board requires one.
Right, but
That's a
that's,
condition.
yeah.
So,
I was planning on running the sidewalk. I was gonna do a wooden, like I don't know what the town of Swanzey.
they have the required parking spaces that they need with the building. That's access for the employees could park there, but as far as the spaces that they need for the building, they have them there.
Yes, on the paved spaces, we have enough for what's required.
Yeah.
We're just saying that if they park.
Clearing that out.
Here, they can park it and put the trailer on that side. That's all it is.
Clearing it up, thank you.
Going back to your fencing off of West Street by the residents. I would suggest that we go west from that corner. A little bit better soundproofing for that residents. If you're gonna be running equipment in the back there, it's gonna be kind of loud, and they're not gonna be very happy. So anything that we can do to help deaden that sound would be, I'm sure would be much appreciated. If you follow where I'm referring to.
Yeah, right here, so.
Yeah.
And I wanna hear your guys' thoughts too, cause I don't wanna just put this ugly building up and everybody's mad about it. I want everybody to be happy. I know I can't please everybody, but I wanna please as many people as I can, so I understand what you're saying, I'm not opposed to that.
What are your hours of operation?
Employees come in around 7:30 and they're usually gone by 4:35. Some days it's later, some days it's earlier.
So I'm thinking of the residents there. Without a fence, in the wintertime, headlights can be shining into their yards and bedroom windows and whatnot.
Well, let's have a consensus now of the board, so we don't keep on coming back and forth with the fence thing. Do the planning board members think that we're gonna require a fence? And that would be along the 150, about 150 feet from where the stockade ends now, west, as Richard had said, to, we'll say this thing right here. That back section right there is what we're talking about. So, do you think the board would require that as a condition of approval? Yes, you do. You do. You don't know?
I could see making it a requirement for the fence until the landscaping's thrown in.
Yep,
And
with that in there. Yeah.
maybe
That's stipulation.
have a 10-year clock on it or something, that, once the trees are.
Yep, I agree with
You,
that.
Jane too. Okay, so we don't have to beat that one anymore. We're probably gonna require a fence if it's approved as a condition. Okay, so let's continue.
so what's the surface? So on top of the berm, there's trees coming up, but what's the surface treated? What is the surface treated?
Probably end up mulching it, or we might just have it be grass that can be mowed. I mean, it's not gonna be a crazy slope, so, I assume it'll either be mulch or grass. And mulch, we'll have to do every year, and it's gonna be quite a bit, but whichever would look better and, go from there. I don't know, what were your thoughts, John, on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to you, if you want to mulch it or grass.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Probably-
we didn't
probably-
call out if it would be mulched.
Yeah, I think that's still up in the air. We'd probably start with grass and, I mean, it's gonna be maintained weekly. And if we end up jumping to mulch, then we'll jump to mulch.
So the area that is shown around under your plantings.
Yep, that will be mulched. That will be mulched. Yeah, yeah, any plantings in the front will be mulched and and edged out with beds. The trees along the back, I think we'll just do grass for now.
There's one area where I just don't understand how it works, and that's snow storage, okay?
Snow storage.
Yeah, I just don't see that it's reasonable to, I can see that you've got the trees sort of gone together on West Street to keep some space open where you can shove snow, towards West Street. That would be one place you could put it.
Same about the apartments.
Well, no, it's more the
Snow storage here.
Right in
snow
there.
storage.
yeah, the area that, it's that area right in there where there are, if you look on the landscaping plan,
So we'll probably use, yeah.
there's a void between.
Yeah, so there's enough room in between those trees and the parking lot with snow.
So you're gonna just be shoving it up sort of against Route
We-
10
I
is
don't-
the
I don't-
idea.
I mean, if we need to, if we absolutely need to, we have all the equipment to move the snow around. So if we have a big pile, break it down, we can do that, but most of the snow we need kind of pushed to the end, I think, in there.
Here.
Hmm.
On the edge of the parking.
So if that's the case, if you don't really need that space for snow storage, wouldn't it be more attractive to spread some of those trees out? You've got those little leaf lindens planted really close together, and they're, at maturity, they've got a big crown.
Yeah.
So instead of gomming them together like that, wouldn't it be more attractive to, there's nothing there that you want us to see
Yeah, the only
especially,
thing I
right?
don't want to do is I don't want to spread them out to the point where you can't see the building from there.
So you'll be able to see
so in
the
there.
stems.
Right, but that's, I mean, the whole point of doing this beautiful building is to be able to see it on the road, have it be very attractive. So,
So you've got snow storage shown there next to Route 10. You've got another section of snow storage shown between the berm and the pre-sold material job surplus area. You've got another area of snow storage shown behind the trailer and equipment parking. So basically, putting up against your berm. And I know that you, in the winter, move snow around, so you must have a good idea that that's adequate, but it seems like you've got sort of conflicting uses.
I mean, yes and no, I mean, we're pretty professional when it comes to snow moving, so it's not like we're clueless and we just push snow into random spots and take out stuff, you know, I'm not trying to, like, well, places that we plow are much more difficult to plow.
I was watching some videos last
Yeah,
night of
yeah.
where you,
Yeah, I mean,
What
we
you do.
work in some pretty tight
Yeah.
spots and the equipment that we have is very, very up to date on plowing. We've got a couple plows that are angle with a pusher and that's the least of my worries. It's finding a place to put the snow and doing any damage to the landscape, so.
and that equipment for plowing, does that live on the sites where you do the plowing?
Correct,
You've got the
yeah.
contracts?
Yep. We have a yard machine that will take care of our shower.
So your electric utility is coming from that pole on the corner of Route 10?
Yeah, so right now, we're planning that would come off of that corner pole. That's yet to be decided by Eversource on Phoenix. So we haven't shown where a transformer would be
You're gonna have an on-site transformer, you mean?
likely, or it could be a pole mounted based on what feedback we get from Eversource.
Yeah,
Ideally.
Yeah, probably you aren't gonna use that much electricity there by the looks of it. So it doesn't show any floor drains in the building, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And it looks like the sewer line runs under those apartments there. Is that a good idea?
So we came off of the West Street to the end, that would pick up this, and then through the connection, we could pick up the restroom.
But they run completely underneath one another, correct? Right into the main building, and through the bathroom, in the main building there?
Yes.
Any idea of the size it's gonna be in there? That front line?
The trunk line
Yeah.
Well-
Sewer line.
to the building would be an 8-inch line.
Will it be an 8-inch?
Yeah,
All the
and
way
then
to
there would be a
the-
clean out on the exterior, and then by code, we're gonna have to have interior clean outs at each unit, each apartment, and then also the restrooms for the commercial use.
So it's gonna go
So once
straight
it goes interior, it'll downsize to probably 4 inch.
4 inch underneath those apartments. They're gonna be on a slab, right? Yeah. I'm just wondering if that's the best idea, you know, to get a plug up in one of those, it can potentially, you know, back up into the rest of them there and difficult to clean them out. I'm just thinking about that, you know, whether you want to rethink that or not. It's nothing, I don't think, to the planning board, but it's just something you might want to think about. Another thing you might want to think about is on that last apartment, about not having your plumbing on the outside wall between those two buildings there. You've got an outside, no, next one up, all the ways up to the new building,
This
right
building?
there. You've got plumbing on that wall right there, and that's gonna be an outside wall now because it's gonna be all vacant through there. It's just gonna be a roof over there. Up to you guys, but I'm just saying that you might want to think about changing the configuration of that floor plan around so that the back-to-back's on another one.
For that last spot, just so it's inside.
Okay, what else has the Conservation Commission seen newer plans or?
They have not seen the newer plan yet. Their meeting is on Monday.
They requested that they'd like to see the newer plans that we know of, or you don't know?
They are anticipating seeing one. They didn't request it, but I indicated that revised plans were coming at their last meeting.
And any other comments other than the tree did they have on that?
Jane, do you recall? I believe, you know, they did not have the ability to comment on bulk storage because we didn't have a complete application on the bulk storage and what was proposed until after their meeting. So if they have concerns on the salt storage, for instance, they have not had an opportunity to weigh in on that yet.
Okay, then I would suggest we probably continue the meeting. When we're done discussing it, continue the meeting till the next, so Conservation Commission has seen revised plans, but we can continue with questions from the board.
Will your site be fully graded and covered before you start construction, or is your plan to do sequential construction of the buildings?
Yeah, so the commercial building would likely be done first with this parking, followed directly right after with this. That way, residential isn't occupied, have people living in it while this is being built. So the phase would just, it'll be sequential with construction of the commercial, construction of the residential portion.
So the entire site is going to be graded, paved where it's supposed to be?
Yeah, so
Everything?
really with this detention area and the rain garden out back, most of it has to be graded because that'll go in first, be stabilized, and then so most of it will be disturbed at one time. Drainage would go in first, stabilized, and then constructing and grading this area out here, constructing the building, the parking lot, followed by this area.
Okay, so the total site will be graded to what would be final before you start building the main building, correct?
Correct, other than finished pavement and stuff like that, so it'd be graded, subgraded, this area gravel graded.
I just want to make sure that we're not going to be coming back in after we start and changing any sort of grading part of that complex. I'm not explaining myself very well, I guess. I just want to make darn sure that everything is done. Your whatever underground work has to be done is done. You're not going to be digging it up afterwards, et cetera, et cetera. And that once you start building, you know, you can continue on without having to bring in and redo things.
Right.
Okay, so that's going to be, that's the plan.
That's the point.
No, I don't wanna do it.
Yeah, no.
I got a couple questions about tree count.
Yes.
So the section that abuts the residential area,
Yep.
there's an 8-inch apple. Is that included in your tree count? Do you attribute that to this project?
No, we didn't because it was onto the budding property.
All right, and how about the 24-inch
We
at the
We
south?
included the oak in there, we did not include the birch.
the maple.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the maple. I know we called it out here. So, yep, the maple was counted, but the birch and the other apple was not.
Okay, so even though it's right on the property line, you figure it belongs to this property.
Yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, where we have it surveyed for the maple is on the abutting property more so overhanging in. And then that maple down here, is more on the subject lot, but also crossing into the property.
Well, the apple is for sure on the others.
Yeah.
And
The center of it.
and this is a birch cluster. And
Yes,
that's
which remains.
definitely on here.
Yes.
So there's one, maple that is questionable, right? Is it on your land? Is it on their land? But you think it's more on their land? This one down here,
This one is more on the subject lot.
on the central. Okay. And then the trees that are up in this northern corner, are these the trees that you counted towards your requirement for parking?
For frontage.
Okay, so,
Yep.
but don't you show,
Based on parking, so there will be 3 trees.
3 trees, right? So are you counting these for frontage and parking?
Yes, these are counted for frontage and parking, but really for the parking, we were counting the trees that are good. Not these ones up here, because these aren't parking spaces that are here. I know it kind of looks like it is, but these are the bulk storage.
Okay.
So those aren't parking.
So your 3 parking trees are the 3 linden trees that are,
Yes.
okay, okay.
And we could spread those out, but we would keep them within proximity of the park.
Yeah, so they spread to 40 feet of maturity, so if you've got them within 12 to 15 feet apart, they're really going together.
Yeah. I mean, these circles are also
Part of the screening.
probably 15 to 15 feet.
Means spot.
If you just scale off the central
Plant
point
tree.
and,
Yep.
you know, put
Right,
30
They would
feet on
be
it.
pretty tight here.
They're very, yeah. So how do we get, I only get 5 shade trees.
Here, this should be
If we don't count if we count the 3 lindens towards parking, then we need to have 6
This is why I'm
shade
telling you.
trees, which would be the linden up in the northern corner, a pine and a pine, right? That's your count.
Yeah, so our frontage is on both streets. That's how we end up with the, we needed 13.
13, okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not counting the pear as a shade tree, right? That's gonna die.
Well, we might change that out. That's what-
Okay, so, but even so, it's not a shade, tree, right? It's-
Yeah.
One, 1, 2, 3,
But we counted all, I think, all the trees
4,
and all the frontage, so we end up with 13 total trees.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I only get 11. 12, 13. Okay, so you're counting the two
Here.
ones that are in the buffer. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And you understand, our regulations are very specifically call for 3-inch caliber trees, and you're specifying 2.5 to 3-inch caliber, so we need to have 3-inch caliber trees.
Okay, so we can remove the 2.5 to
Yeah.
3.
I'm almost certain almost all the nurseries you're getting for 3-inch, you're getting 2.5. It's just how they come. But we can specify, but if they come a 2.5, it's gonna, if they come 3, it's gonna say on the label 2.5, 3. So, but we can do our best to get 3.
Because I know you're interested in, the look.
100%,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I know last year we did a project with about 50 trees, and we needed 3. And what was 3 was really 2.5. So, but
Now, would you be willing to substitute that pear tree for something different?
absolutely. Yeah, I was not aware of it.
It's not indigenous and I have a farm that's further up. And indigenous species, sometimes you get into where they're an issue.
Sure.
Japanese knotweed is something that, I hope you don't plant any of that stuff.
What would you have them replace it with?
I don't think.
Any
What would we have them replace the pear tree with so we can get over that?
Yeah, I don't,
You have no idea? Okay.
my business.
Then it's their choice. They can-
It's their choice.
It's your choice, it comes off our list.
Okay.
And just another thought, I don't know how much experience you have with those hollies. But in our area, they really don't like the winter desiccation because it's,
Yeah, you can spray them with a wax spray.
are you,
That would
you
give
don't
some-
want to do that?
It's a natural wax spray.
But that just needs a whole level of maintenance that you really have to do. I'm just saying.
No, I-
you have a choice.
I agree. I would say yes and no to that question. Some hollies in certain spots do much better than others. If it's really windy and cold and shady, north sides, I would say hollies definitely do much worse in New England in the winter.
It's
So
just, you know, it's your
yeah.
business. If you put the dye, that's your problem. Fix it, right?
then
But
it would
I'm
be
just saying,
replaced. But yeah.
I've not seen them.
Yes, I mean, I can agree. I've seen both, but yes.
All right then. So what we'll probably end up doing is continuing the public hearing to the next meeting in order to allow the Conservation Commission to review the plans. So between now and then, is there anything else we would like them to add on to the plan? We've talked about a stockade fence, addition of that, continuation across, it would be the southerly boundary, I guess, going from east to west. About 150 feet, I think it looks like on the plan.
That's the property line, yes.
Yeah, yeah. That and changing up that pear tree. I don't know if you can put that on the plans or not, but you know you're gonna do that. See, the utilities, you're thinking they're coming from there. I know you have to wait for public service, but if you found out between now and then, good if you put it on the plan. See what else. Oh yeah, the material and the color of exterior finishes, if you could just figure out what color you're gonna do it, just stick it on the plan.
Sure.
Good. Let's see, what else have I missed here? You already have your DOT access permit on Swanzey Road. You know, Swanzey access permits, that for the driveway permits.
Did we get into the staff issues yet? Because they had a list of conditions they wanted to look.
We're going through those now, it's on page 7. But we're just seeing what we might want them to add to the plan before we get them back. Just so everything is on the plan, so we don't have to make them go again and
Yeah,
go back.
yeah, that's good.
Want to
Yeah.
iron it out now.
Do we need to be concerned with, provision for water? Is it that using the West Swanzey? Does that need to be a condition, that versus a well?
I don't know if it needs to be a condition because, you know, obviously they're gonna need water someplace. If they cannot hook to the water company, then they'll have to be back on site plan to show where the well is gonna be. Looks to me like they have plenty of property there to put a well with a 75-foot radius on it there. But they would have to come back in and they wouldn't be able to get a CO anyways without water going to the farmers.
So there's fire suppression is recommended, the apartments.
Right, fire suppression beyond the apartments only, not
Yeah.
commercial.
And what is that exactly? Is that just supplied by West Swanzey Water Company?
So very unlikely that they'll have enough pressure and capacity for fire suppression. So we're waiting to hear is, do they have enough for the domestic water use? That would eliminate the well, and then we put in a fire cistern like we've done in other projects in town, so there'd be an underground tank. We discussed on this portion here where the water line comes in near the setback, behind the sidewalk would be roughly where it basically could, fire truck could pull in, connect to that, and get a pump for fire suppression.
Would you add that into the site plan? Even if you don't put it in, because it
We
sounds
could
like.
show an outline of where.
Yeah, put it in where that would be. Let's see, anything else there? I think,
Spreading out the linden trees.
that's what, adjusting the cluster of trees in the front is what you're talking about?
Right
Yeah.
here,
So
so
trees.
next to each other.
What is that exactly gonna be?
Give them enough room so that if they're gonna be, 40-foot mature, or 3-foot crown, give them more space,
So you just wanna
just.
We'll spread them out.
spread them out?
Yeah.
Mr. Jasmine, is there anything that you would like us to ask them about?
So far you got it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Do you want to open up to the public now over there? We haven't asked a
Sorry,
question.
Ben, thanks for reminding me. Yes. Any questions from the public? I know we're gonna continue, but yeah, you come to the meeting, any questions of the applicant from the public? I guess not, but, just identify yourself for the record, please.
Russ Driscoll, I live at 75 West Street.
Driscoll.
I talked, I know, John, you talked about the berm and the trees on and everything. So 2-foot berm, 6-foot trees, 8-foot tall. How tall is the salt shed gonna be?
So the trees are gonna grow a little taller than that, I think, which is right. Salt shed is, if, I don't have an answer for you like that right now. Salt shed, we're probably looking at, I don't know, 14 feet high, maybe 12.
I mean, we look out across the
Right.
field, and if you're gonna buffer it.
Yeah.
You just don't,
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I plan on having it wood sided all the way down, so it will look like a shed.
And then you're gonna run, obviously I heard your hours of operation, but you're still gonna run your commercial stuff whenever it snows, right?
Yeah, we're kind of like emergency
Right,
services.
no,
at
I
that point.
understand what you do.
We get rid of the backup first.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, with that comment, would you mind putting the height of that salt shed on the site plan? Anybody else? Anybody else from the public? And if not, then a motion to continue the public hearing to our next meeting.
So moved. May 11th.
Next meeting on May 11th, okay. Motion by Mike to continue our public hearing to May 11th. Seconded by Richard. Is there any further discussion? And all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll see you back here on the 11th. Next up is our site plan review regulations, and we're looking at parking. Larger parking, basically. We're looking at parking last night. Pretty much had everything else situated there. And yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna discuss it. So what do we have on that?
This is not really parking, this is going back into something else that we're.
Yep.
Okay. Anyways,
Page, what page do you?
there is no page.
Oh, that's, that's the one we got last night.
Yeah, from our last.
Oh, that's different. That was that part of that.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, it's, 10 and 11.
That would be on here. Where these 10, 11.
It's like a handout from Victoria.
That's Victoria handed out, and we're using that as a checklist, basically, to see if we got everything covered.
I didn't know whether or not if we left those as individually marked in our review of the plan, because looking at the,
Well, those are purposes. It's under the big heading. Victoria just separated it out. That was in that giant long paragraph we had in the beginning for the purpose of the regulations. That's actually not a regulation. It's the purpose of them. The regulations that regulate those subjects are what have teeth to them. You know, this, it says a purpose to require suitably located streets of sufficient, that's the one you're talking about, right? Sufficient width to accommodate existing and regular traffic.
she's broken it into two different items.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. It's all under D, under the regulations.
Oh, yeah, you're right, but,
I mean, my only question was, when we're constructing this, are we separating that D out into two different items?
no, I don't think so. Again, Victoria just broke this down
Mm-hmm.
as what was in That's exactly what is in our, the beginning, you know, the purpose of our amendments in that giant.
Some of the wording.
But again, we have to vote on whether we want to use that. I had suggested at the last meeting that we use what Victoria wrote in the beginning because of our zoning regulations. It has just a paragraph of the purpose, and our zoning regulations are like that thick. And we don't list all those purposes out. We just wanted to make sure that we had everything in there. But, you know, our purpose and needs are just a small little paragraph. And Victoria had written, yeah, it's just a small paragraph like that. That's the purpose of our zoning regulations, just a general purpose. And she had written in that same handout that we had, and I'll just read it. The purpose of these site plan review regulations is to provide for the safe and attractive development of the town of Swanzey and to generally create conditions within the town of Swanzey favorable for health, safety, convenience, and prosperity. That says it, I think, right there, as far as the purpose of our.
Everything else is a subcategory.
Yeah.
That, you know.
It's the purpose
Well,
of
no,
our
I know it's
regulations.
still category, but it's what my,
But these, I'm thinking anyways, I might be wrong, that these would not be there. All these 1 through, I think there are 19 pieces would not be in there. They're in the regulations, but they just would not be in the purpose anymore. Because they're actually in the regulations as to what is required for those.
Can I ask a question
Go
about
ahead.
this? So I've got one copy of what was in the packet this week of this lineup, and I believe Victoria's 19, we'll call them her 19 pieces. It's just breaking up a very large paragraph that does still exist because you guys have not yet determined to remove it or change it. But we're using Victoria's list as a checklist while we're in this process.
Yep, that's what we had talked about at the last meeting to make
But
sure
it's-
that covered, but
They're all there still.
they are
just-
all there.
They're just in a paragraph form rather than bullets.
okay, so if we were to suggest removing that, would we just say the purpose reference to 674-44? And leave it at that, because that covers everything, but, yeah, there.
I like what Victoria wrote, really, it's just a general purpose of the regulations is what we're trying to accomplish in town of Swansea, just for a nice, pleasing.
You know, we need to, I think we need to cite,
Well, that, I think, I don't have it in front of me, I could, but I think that one you're citing says that all those things can be contained in the site plan review regulations. I think that's what they're talking about. Those are the things they allow us to regulate. And we don't necessarily have to say that the state allows us to regulate all these things, as long as we don't overstep our bounds and try and regulate things we aren't supposed to. With just a small paragraph of the purpose and making sure that we have all those things, which I'm pretty sure we do, in our regulations. We don't need that whole giant paragraph that Sarah was holding up there. We just need what Victoria wrote right there. And for the purpose, and then we move on into the regulations, just citing the regulations.
And then to continue that idea, number 1, when we talk about harmony and aesthetics, that is the opening statement that I inserted in the section where we talk about landscaping and screening, okay? So it's just, it's moving that sentence from where it used to be in the monster paragraph to the beginning of this other section.
And it's there, yeah.
And actually, that was the source of number 1, which is harmonious and aesthetically pleasing development, and number 2, to provide for open spaces and green spaces of adequate proportion. Both of those were listed in the monster paragraph. I just picked them up and got rid of them together.
And I think they're all covered throughout. You follow, I am confused, you follow what my reasoning is there, Richard?
yeah, well, I understand your reasoning. I just want to be sure that we're not rewriting the statute.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, we can't do that. But yeah, I don't think we are, because we aren't overstepping our bounds. I think everything in our regulations, we're allowed to do under 674, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Just before we get to the parking area, just have one little dog eared something over there. Yeah, we have just a couple of things. you know, we have that new part that we put in there that I'll just start it off here. It says, if after review and comment by the Conservation Commission, planning board determines that the potential damage to an underlying aquifer, this is on page 8, aquifer or wellhead protection area would result from the proposed use, and the following initial items may be required by the planning board. We go on to say a bunch of stuff there. Number 3, it says stormwater management and pollution prevention plans to include, but I think I'd like to change that. Even though those are my wording, I think it ought to be changed to say stormwater management and pollution prevention plans, including but not limited to, because we may ask for more.
Yeah.
Put them there. So if we just drop the 2, so it reads prevention plans, including but not limited to. We're doing down there. And then on page 9, this goes along with page 20. On page 20, under pollution control, we have under specific standards, and it repeats that same exact paragraph. It's after review and comment by the Conservation Commission, you know, on and on and on, planning board. Then we'd have I, an approved plan for blasting activities. I think we should cross out that B, specific standards, take that I of the approved, that whole little paragraph of the blasting activities, and move it to page 9 under G as a new H, because that is underneath that paragraph after review by the comment by the Conservation Commission. That paragraph is already there, so this is just listed as one of the items that the planning board may institute or may have a applicant bring in if they think that blasting is going to hurt the aquifer or something, or a wetland protection area.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you want this section?
Yeah, it's
To,
that I should move it to page 9, and as its new section H, right under the G, and then just cross out this one, the redundant one right there.
one that's on page 20.
That B on page 20, because we already have it there. And other than the parking, that was it, all that I had. Anybody else?
That statement, just removing I.
That's page 20, yeah. Yeah, removing B on that pollution control, removing B, because that's the same exact paragraph that we have on page 9. We're taking I and moving it as this new paragraph H underneath that category. So, parking. Now, we spend a lot of time on parking here, and landscaping the parking lots and on with it. We are probably going to see very few parking lots that we're talking about, giant parking lots there. And I only say that because an industry or a building like that require, of course, the water from the water company for fire protection, which we don't have over here. The Swanzey Water Company doesn't do that. They may put in cisterns, I suppose, but can and cannot. Require sewer, which is minimally on Route 10 there. And on Route 12, the same thing. There is some water up Route 12, goes up to the new Page place. It goes as far as down on Route 12. The sewer goes that far as well. But there aren't too many big areas that are going to be developed into like a 300 some odd parking lot up there, you know, big businesses. We still need it in the zoning, but I'm just saying we spent a lot of time on this and we may never use it. So we might as well nail it down tonight and figure out what we're going to do.
Don't agonize over it.
Yeah, just figure out what we're going to do.
The only big parking lots I can foresee ever is probably an industrial area. Maybe if a plant comes in and builds a big plant, where they gotta have a large parking lot for the
But
employees.
again, in order for that to happen, they need fire protection. And
Right.
They don't have it.
They don't have it.
Not all over 10 here, maybe, I don't know about the water
I'm
system.
talking about I'm talking about over by the fairgrounds, our industrial
You
area
have
there.
to park up there.
Yeah. That's probably where a manufacturer comes to town. That's where he's gonna wanna go.
Could I interject?
Yes, you can.
We may be seeing an application for site plan review for Webb, where the fun park is right now. I don't know how large the parking lot will be for that. I only have an idea of how large the building will be, so that will probably be coming before you, before the summer is over, I anticipate. So I just wanna, I don't want you to say, we may never need this. And
So then,
right now.
So they actually changed their mind of where they wanted to go.
They're in the process of changing their mind. Nothing is final.
Yeah, we don't want to approve something that we don't like, obviously, but we just want to make sure that we can just nail it down and move on with the best that we can come up with. We've been working on it for a while. We've all been looking at parking spaces, I think, or parking lots of Keene and on and on. We looked at the one, I've got those plans still here from Market Basket. We've looked at.
See, but I feel, in my own fault, I feel to go out to like medical place out there on Route 9 to check for, if we did have somebody come in, what would we want to do for parking? We kind of have to have that in back of our minds too. I'll write something about that.
Well,
Just in
parking in
case.
general, right? I think you've lost me for a minute.
Well, I'm talking about the large parking lots that we're talking about
Yep.
for industrial use.
Well, we can tier them into different tiers. We can tier them into like 50 to 100, 100 to 250, 250 beyond, and like that. Sarah and I were talking about earlier in the week about the green space, which is what we are having trouble with inside the parking areas there, what it's based on. And we were wondering if you could just take the square footage of the total parking spaces, or just the number of spaces themselves, and use that as a formula for the green space inside. Then there'd be no question as to what is used for the square footage, whether it's this part of the parking lot, that part of the parking lot. If you have 200 spaces, then it's X amount of green space with inside, or if you have 50 spaces, it's X amount, something like that.
That has some merit because it's going to make it easier for the engineering people when they do the parking lot together. They're going to have a better idea.
Yeah, there's no leeway there. If you have that many parking spaces, then you have to have that amount, X amount of whatever it is,
Right.
green space inside.
You wanna break it out between retail and residential? As far as.
I don't know, because a parking space is a parking space. What we're trying to do is keep a large parking space from looking like a large parking space. So I
Right.
think-
But we've heard comments that people, like multifamily apartment houses, that the more green space is better for
Yeah,
their life there,
Oh, yeah.
Even if it is
Look
a
at it.
parking.
Definitely so. Yeah.
So, but a retail space, the Market Basket,
Yeah,
they're gonna probably dictate how much parking they need. And then the manufacturer,
Basically, it's employee parking.
we tell them how much they need, in our regulations, we tell them how much they need for each use, like that, Market Basket or multifamily or whichever. But again, the planning board can waive things, the planning board can look at each one individually. If that doesn't fit,
Right.
this doesn't fit, but
we can-
as something to go by guidelines or standard, we have to come up with.
But to Sly's point there, maybe it's good to write a different parking regulations for different areas, like you got one for commercial and industrial, and then one for the mixed use, like we're talking about tonight. It might make sense.
That does have merit, to do that, I would think, especially, industrial, especially up the industrial park there, which you can't really see from anywhere. Pretty much, parking
Right.
area there might not be such an eyesore as one right out on Route 10 or 12.
Then you get into a question, okay, you mentioned mixed use. Argument's sake, you base it on, parking is based on square footage. So if you've got so many square feet of industrial or commercial, and so many square feet of residential, you put the parking, based on each use or based on the total use or?
Based on each use, but you're talking about putting the parking landscaping, right?
Yeah,
Based
yeah.
on that. And right, yeah, that's, maybe it would be best to use just
And parking would be by residential unit in a multifamily.
as what's required.
Right, but as far as an industrial, again, I think whoever's proposing the industrial is gonna know how many people they need to work.
Yeah.
They might not need
Right.
as many people as we might
Well,
think.
they can go on we can give them a reduction, right? We have a
Right.
zoning, we can do that.
Well, you take the example over there in Hillsborough, the plant I used to run, 850 employees. So how many, three shifts, of course, but there's like 250 to 300 in each shift. You have to have less landscaping on something like that just to get the parking spaces in.
Keep the parking lot down to a minimal size, but that's another thing that.
Because
we're
you don't
looking
want
at.
to pave over every square inch of land.
Well, yeah, you require more green space and the parking lot gets bigger.
Yeah.
Like that. So,
So do we differentiate between the industrial manufacturing and the, not residential, but the mixed use and commercial, residential like here?
we probably shouldn't have too many categories. You know, maybe
Two, I would
Maybe
say
just
two would
two.
be enough.
one
I
for
would say two.
commercial industrial and the other for the rest.
Right.
perhaps.
Yeah.
But we haven't even figured out one yet. So, you know, we gotta get one down, figure out what we're gonna use, what are we gonna base it on? Back to that parking space there. I ran calculation on market baskets up there. We're all familiar with that. We know what that looks like as to what it would look like. You know, how would they meet the requirements with the number of spaces they have? And it doesn't come out, it does not work. It's too little green space they would have to have with the number of parking spaces they have up there. But if we assign a square footage per parking space for lots, that would work. We'll say lots up to, I wrote that down, so I wrote it down someplace. So I did calculations as to how that would work. And if we had lots from 50 to 100 spaces, if we required 10 square feet of internal green space per parking space, that would be up to about the 5 or 7% that we're looking at in market basket. Wouldn't be the 10% that we've had in our regulations now, but I think we all probably figured that that's kind of unreasonable. It's too much, that 10%. You can't make that bigger. But if we did that, if we used parking spaces, if we did that, this would work. The 50 to 100 spaces, 10 square feet of internal green space per space.
Would they make the parking spaces smaller?
They can't, we have a minimum size, we have 162 square feet, that's all we have.
Squeezable.
And say 100 to 250 spaces, we use 15 square feet per space. And then 250 plus, we use 20 square feet per space. And then that would be calculated to use for the internal green spaces, which consists of those divider rows that we're talking about and the end caps that we're talking about. That's,
So we would not, like, so I was in Home Depot a lot of times recently, and they've got those linear dividers every 4 rows, and it looks really nice.
yeah, 4 rows. I was, over at Price Chopper over there too. They've got, let's see, I think in front of their store, it's 4 rows, every 4 rows, and that's pretty nice. That looks pretty good.
So we've got it in your version, in Scott's version, we've got one linear divider, I should be for every 6 parking rows, we changed that to 4?
Yeah, I had already penciled in, I think, changed it to 4, but yeah, I think you're right. 4 would be better. And they also have, I don't know if you noticed, they also have their trees every 3 parking spaces, which probably is about 30 feet. It's a little less than 30 feet, but something like that. And that's pretty good spacing from, you can stand up and look at it rather than on the drawing there, over in the parking lot. That's
And that's what
pretty
you were
decent spacing.
proposing that as well.
We were proposing not more than 30 feet.
Yeah.
Do you want to change that to every 3 parking spaces instead of 30 feet?
Let's leave it at the 30 feet, because that's about what that is. Yeah, so let's leave it at that. And also, let's see, we had the dividers, the lineal dividers there, at least 10 feet wide I had on there. So I measured the ones over by Home Depot, I measured the ones over by, where was it now? The other grocery store in Keene. Price Chopper. Hannaford, yeah, and Price Chopper. So Price Chopper has the nicest one that seems there. And those are 9 feet, including the granite curb. So their green part is probably about 8 feet. They've got a granite, so it's about 9 feet there. And that looked pretty good, so.
And it's adequate for.
It is, yeah.
Getting the
The
water.
trees are fine, yeah. Seem pretty good. So we could use 9 feet in there and that would keep the parking lot a little tiny bit smaller maybe. And still have the green space in there. So we can change that to 9. And let's see. And what else? Let's see. I think that also Pennsylvania. It was up on the beginning part of it. A minimum of 1 tree, 3-inch diameter, is required for every 5 parking spaces along the perimeter of the parking area where parking spaces are provided. And I penciled in here, or space 30 feet apart where parking is not provided. So
So that's the
Yeah,
driveway.
but there's a flaw in that, you know, what if the parking spaces go not perpendicular to that green space, but if they go parallel with it, then you've got real space trees, you know, because parking space is a lot wider than it is, or a lot longer than it is wide. So we might have to put, or might want to put the 30-foot one on that instead of the 5 parking spaces there. That was right up the top there. I had to reach 5 parking spaces. We might want to put just 30 feet, just like we have in the other thing. They could do it the other way, and it looked a little bit sparse there. So what are we gonna do? Again, we have, it seems to be the standard is about 20 cars for a row. And like Victoria was saying, over in Home Depot and that other parking lot there are 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and then a divider spot. That looked like a pretty good layout. So if we have one of there's a section, I measured over there, there's a section there, it has the 2, 4, 6, it has 80 cars in it. That does not have a center divider in it. That has 2 outside rows of cars and a double row of cars in there. So that'd be an 80 parking space there. So if we use the 50 parking spaces to 100 parking spaces for the 10 square feet of internal green, that would work in a parking lot like that with the 2 end caps on that centerpiece, if you follow what I mean. The centerpiece has the double row of cars there and an end cap on either one there, green space end cap on either one, and has 2 outside rows. Say that was all they had, 80 cars there. That would work for that parking lot as well.
Should you add a provision for, you know, whichever is greater? For the interior green space. So for instance, if in your, let's say it's just an 80 space parking lot, and so you don't have to have those linear islands on the outside because that would be perimeter parking.
It would be, yeah.
Then you would be losing that island space as interior green space.
I'm just saying that for that calculation, we're just calculating this for the interior green space.
Oh, only this, okay.
I'm just assuming that those would be perimeter spots, not
All right.
the island. Yeah, I didn't explain that properly, but it would work. And we'd still have interior green space in that parking lot if these were just a perimeter, not those little islands we're talking about, divider islands. And you had a T-stop that we require in our zoning ordinance anyways, at the end of those would be amount. If you look at that parking lot out there, visualize that that's the only parking lot there, it still works visually, it looks pretty decent with the trees and how they've got it spaced out and stuff there. We would want to go with, you know, for the green space, again, it's the green space is what we're being held up on, I think. Do we want to go with a space, you know, square foot per space, or do we want to go back to a calculation of the entire parking lot itself for percentage-wise green space? We did that before, and that works out to between 5% and 7%. If we use a flat rate, we'll say parking space, then it works out to a square footage per space. What sounds best? Anyway, I'm gonna go down the line. Jane, what sounds best to you? You look like you're falling asleep over there.
I don't know what. My eyes are bothering. My eyes are really bothering me. But I just had a crazy idea. That's why what's the purpose of the green space? Is it for breathing or is it for looks?
I think it's for looks, you know, it looks as well, it gives a little bit of shade, but it's for a place to plant some trees, so you don't have a giant.
So not applied to anything we've talked about in any of our plans or buildings, but I'm thinking if I were going to design a parking lot for a retail complex, I'd like to see green space in front of the retail, you know, you would have to walk on a sidewalk between green over here and green over there. And if you have to have X percentage of green space, why does it have to be bordered by cars? Why can't you just plop it right in the middle? or wherever you want.
Like a giant island or something. or
If
something
it's
like
for look, yeah, that's what I've been sitting here thinking, well, gee, then the disadvantage would be that people would turn it into a dog park. Or they'd tell their kids to play in it while they went in the store or something crazy. That might be a problem. But I'm thinking if it's so we have green space to look good, why can't it be along the public way and where the public goes into the building? Like at Market Basket, yes, you have green areas, but they're out there with people parked all around them. So what? And they're not grassy, really. They have some scraggly trees and lilies. They used to have lilies, and I think they kind of dissipated. But if you were going to require a place to have green space, why not make it a noticeable green space and make it pretty?
There's a little shrub island there on the, not an island, but a little 3-foot path probably next to the building.
Where?
On the north
Market
side of
Basket?
Basket. Under the farmland now.
It's the place where plants go to die, and you notice everything they plant there dies.
Oh, you mean where you get, if you get a parking space on the end?
No, right up near the building. You know where the bakery is? It's like on the outer wall of the bakery.
Yeah, along the wall,
Yeah.
but you don't walk on,
The sidewalk right there.
this, yeah, you walk on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I try not to get scratched by the little boxwoods.
But the other thing is that the sun hits it, and I think that's why it kills those trees. There's just no way they can, it's like a, yeah.
And they
infrared oven.
probably don't get watered very well either, so.
No, they have a
Oh,
water
no,
tank
they're
right
pretty
next to
held up. No, I'm thinking someplace where I went once, many years ago. I got out of the car, my husband drove to park the car, but the way went in front of the store, and then there were trees and shrubs in front of the store and walkways through them. And then the parking lot was just cars.
And that wasn't, I mean, that was okay. Or that was-
Well, yeah,
that-
you know,
Well, that's a possibility.
because you measure it out, it's X percentage.
And have it right there in front of the building.
Yeah.
Require what, 10
And-
feet now? I think it's 10 feet on the public access side of the building.
You're in Cracker Barrel, aren't you?
Oh, no, I've been there.
I think the purpose of breaking up the parking lot is for aesthetics.
It is.
That's what I was wondering.
You don't want to really clutter the front of the building because you want people to be able to see who it is that's there. And,
Oh,
if they have some sort of a showroom across the front, they
Well, it would
want the
depend
people
on
to be able
that.
to see what's there.
It would depend on who, what the building was purposed for.
Depending on the store, a lot of stores, like, for instance, the supermarkets, have these great big sale signs in the windows. And if you've got the landscaping for them, are you hiding those sale signs?
No, not according to my drawing, I have.
Let's implement her drawing.
You gotta hit,
And you would drive right by the store, between the green space and the store. You could have the green space there, and there could be a drive through there if you wanted, or you drive on the other side of the green space. But you might take up some of the parking capacity, that would be the only thing.
Well, if you didn't have any green space in the parking lot, then you'd be draining it off. You wouldn't be taking it.
Yeah, right.
So, what's your thoughts? Green interior or no green interior parking lot? Yes or no? We're gonna decide this one right now.
I like green interior. I think it looks better. That's opinion.
So doing your calculation for, the 5 to 7% or whatever it came out to be, I think would be fine. And maybe leave it up to the type of store, if a store wanted to have a green space in the front and a solid
That they could.
parking lot,
Oh, yeah, we could waive the,
we could allow them to take the interior and move it to the interior, meaning between the building and the parking.
Depending,
just a sec, I get you in a minute.
No, the interior,
Interior or no interior green space?
no, interior, but I'm trying to think, do we require the actual placement?
No, we let them lay it out.
Yeah,
we
that's
approve
right.
it,
Okay, so we can do the percentages
Right.
we can do that, yeah.
and then they can configure.
And they have to make it safe, so if they're going around corners and things.
No, I would prefer the interior.
I like the interior, and among other things, it provides a place to walk without a car backing into you. Whereas if
Oh,
you had-
you're talking about walking on the interior
Yeah.
landscaping thing?
Target,
yeah,
I suppose, yeah.
where they have the center
Mhm.
walkway
Okay.
between the
Yeah,
front.
it does give you that. Victoria?
Interior, because I like the relief from the heat, you know, that the pavement is sending up.
Okay.
I think that's a much more pleasant experience.
I'm for the interior as well. Sorry, Jane. Go ahead.
No, that's interior, I mean,
The parking lot.
it's in.
It is, and if
I
they
wouldn't
wanted
have
to do
green
something like
space.
that, yeah, they could
Yeah,
easily come in.
I'm not taking the green space out of the park.
You would, yeah. Okay, so let's nail something else down. Is it a percentage that we use and let them calculate it with the square footage of the parking area? Or do we require a, 20 or 10 square feet per parking space? Do we do it per space, or we do it by square footage of the parking area? We've always done it by square footage of the entire parking area, but sometimes it's in dispute as to exactly what you can use to calculate that. That's the thing. And also, the travel lanes. We require, that's another thing, it's 22 feet minimum we require, but 24 feet is a standard between, lanes in those parking areas there. 22 feet is kind of small. We might want to go to 24. But getting back to the square footage, what do we do? Do we use the percentage, and it works out to, I have them on those drawings right there, but it works out to about 5% green space for a parking lot with, I think, around 100 cars in it, up to 100 cars, something like that. And then over 100, it works out to about 7% green space. And that's of the square footage area. Jane, what do you think we should do?
I have no idea.
No idea.
Whatever you do, it'll be contested.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. But that's what we're here for, we can grant waivers and stuff. Like,
I think it'll make it simple for them to do the calculations, that by the parking space is easier for them to get in than it is doing the whole thing.
it'll do the same.
Right, it'll amount to the same, but yeah, it'll be easier for them that, because we know what the problem we had with the last one here. Trying to calculate it out.
Oh, yeah.
We went back and forth on
Yeah,
that,
we did, right, yeah.
so.
So, you, Mike, Richard.
You're referencing the airport thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the one we went back and forth and,
as to the calculation they use.
Yeah.
So they
You
use
wanted the 7%,
that.
we wanted the.
We could do it either.
No, isn't that how it worked out?
Oh,
Yours is-
yeah. It was something to do with, what they could include in the interior green.
Mhm.
It was some of the,
right,
yeah, they were using some of the corner ones that we
Right.
had allowed other, contractors to use before. But, yeah, we need to nail that down exactly what they can use, what they can't use. I suppose, yeah, parking space per space would eliminate that, I suppose. But Richard, what do you think?
I don't know if we use a specific number to dictate if we're restricting versus just taking a percentage of the size.
It'd amount to the same thing.
It will, but I think this gives us, or gives them more flexibility.
To find a hole in it, to find a loophole.
Well, like a loophole or what,
Interesting. Steve?
not every parking lot is a perfect rectangle or square or whatever.
You're right.
But I think that you've got to take a percentage of the entire parking lot area, including the travel lanes.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we've had
Yeah.
to do before, including travel lanes. That's why the two calculations did not come out, parking spaces versus the square footage, when I calculated them out on the market basket one, because the parking lanes had been included in that square footage. Which they would be in any square footage if we're gonna do it. Total area would be, Victoria?
I guess I'm reluctant to have different requirements for different size parking lots. So, I think we should have 1%, 5% or 7% internal green space should be the requirement. And I would opt for the 7% myself. I think what we see sometimes is people taking properties, parcels that are really too small to do what they would like to do on it. And it's not our fault if they can't, if their building is, what they're proposing to build is oversized, therefore requiring too much parking. They just might need to scale it back to accomplish what we would like to accomplish in terms of landscaping and screening. So I think 7%, and I think, although I like the concept of keying it into the number of parking spaces, I am a little worried about not accommodating for the travel lanes.
Well, in our regulations, we do have travel lane requirements in there. And like I said, ours is 22 feet, which should be 24, I think, but 22. They have to have travel lanes in there.
Right.
So that wouldn't be, there wouldn't be a problem.
But you were talking about keying it off of the number of parking spaces.
Yeah, using that rather than
Yeah.
a square footage, so we'd know, or whoever was designing, the engineer would know exactly how much they had to have in there for
It
the green
seems
space.
clever, but I don't know what the percentage should be, because I would like to end up with 7% of the total parking.
Well, those are the calculations, that I came up with 7% on calculations, on real-time calculations on the market basket one, and I think it was also, might have been that price chopper one. And the reason for 2 tiers, meaning the lower parking spaces as opposed to the higher number of parking spaces requiring more, is that up to 100 spaces, you can't really fit in interior. And if you do have to fit it in, the parking lot has to get bigger. You still have your 100 spaces, but you require them to have this, section inside there, you pushed out the parking space, so.
Well, what you're doing too with increasing the perimeter trees, I mean, that's a big change for us to require 1 tree every 30 feet on the perimeter. I think that could offset,
Could offset the visual form, but again, I'm coming down to, you're talking about the 7% as opposed to the 5%. When you apply the 7% to, we'll say, 100-car parking lot, it doesn't work. You have to expand that parking lot to accommodate that 7% in there. If you use the 5%, you can do it with the end caps, like I was showing you before on the other thing. That will accommodate their green space. Those end caps that we require them to have anyway. So that was why the 2 different tiers.
Okay.
I'm not saying one's right or not. I'm just saying that's why that was in.
well, we gotta test it, right? I mean, so I'm glad you did this calculation.
Well,
We
let's
don't
draw
know
it out,
what-
see if
I
it
mean, the
fits or not.
theory until you draw it out.
Till it fits, yeah.
I have a question, sorry.
I think Jan was gonna say.
Well, didn't we last time talk about considering the size of the parking lot and having percentage of green space be harmonious with the size of the parking lot? So if you had, as you were just saying, 100-car parking lot, you wouldn't want to have to expand the size of the parking lot to accommodate the 7%. So why can't you have a ratio between the size of the parking lot and the
green.
area of
Size.
green space? I suppose it's
Well,
still the
that percentage is a ratio, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also the number of
Okay,
parking
I
spaces
got it.
is a ratio. It's just putting it 2 different ways. We just
Yeah.
have to decide which one we're gonna use and stick with one, and we can change it if we're wrong, if it
I think
doesn't
we should
work.
go for the 7.
7 across the board or 7, it doesn't fit in a smaller parking lot. You can draw it on paper there, it doesn't work, and we can do, whatever the board wants to do, we'll do. We'll put it in our regulations, we've spent too much time on this already, but I'm just saying that, looking at it on paper,
Let's park.
it doesn't fit. So yeah, let's park it. What are we gonna do? 7% or 5%?
7.
7.
It's like 5. Richard, 5.
7 on a parking lot over a certain size. 5 if it's,
Okay, let's,
5 if it's less than whatever that size is that we decide on.
let me rephrase the question now. I think we ought to get this one decided first. Are we gonna have 2 different, requirements for different size parking lots? We'll say up to 100, one size, because actually up to 50, we can't put anything in there. It ought to start at 50, I think. I don't know if you disagree, but anyways, should we have a difference between a 100-lot parking lot and a say 200 or 300?
If you take a Grimalo's parking lot.
Yeah.
and you were to build that building today, and you require so much green space interior,
Yeah,
you're gonna lose most of the parking. Which is
Right.
why over 50 parking spots or whatever the magic number is.
I think it ought to start at 50, something like that.
Yeah.
Because it gets too small there, but 50 to 100.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way then, 50 to 100 at 5%, over 100 at 7%. Yes or no?
I think that's what I
Yep.
meant.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
Okay, okay, so we have 50 to 100 parking spaces, 5% green space.
5% interior.
Interior green space, thank you, yep. And anything over 100 parking spaces, we have 7% interior green space.
At least.
At least, yeah, that's
Okay,
a
so
bare
I mean,
minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is business, because we don't do residential, well, we do residential use like multifamily, but we don't do,
Residential area.
this is all the parking lots.
Wait, you were mentioning up in the industrial park,
Yeah,
a couple of those buildings are set back, you can't see them.
you can't,
Why do they need to have?
they
that?
probably don't, but they can always ask us for a waiver, we can look at the plans, we can suggest things too, if it looks like they're expanding way out that they shouldn't have to, and we could eliminate some of that with the green space, you could suggest.
Safety reasons from people walking from their car to the building.
Yeah,
And
that
again,
too.
it's fitting the development to the size of the property. If they don't have room for it, they shouldn't be
Then,
building that
yeah,
big.
then they can't.
It's, yeah,
can't
shrinking.
do it. So,
That's what the green space is.
Something that doesn't exactly inform this, but just food for thought with zoning amendments and such moving forward. In the industrial park district, that is the only district where you guys have impervious surface limitations. And so if you were to add that into maybe the business district, it would reduce having a development that's really developing every square inch of a property, which I think a lot of this discussion about interior green space in the parking lot is meant to prevent the overdevelopment of parcels. And there are ways to just address that head on by including limitations on impervious surface.
There you go.
So I'm just adding that for you to consider down the road.
good idea.
And then you get, sometimes you need green space with a place where people want to live, you need green space to be provided anyway. You wouldn't want to live in a place that had a parking lot with just parking lot.
Well, look at the Lego building going up next to Romano's.
Please don't make me look at, oh, I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, you don't have to go down to a post office every day like we do.
No, I don't.
Where does that mean, Sarah, the impervious surface limitation? That would be in our site plan?
It's in the zoning ordinance in the industrial park district. There are very, very different setback restrictions and impervious surface.
So we've got 50 to 100 spaces, 5%, over 100, 7% internal spaces, internal green space. Let's see, anything else we decided? We put a few other things to bed. So let me read this over. This is what I had suggested to the board, and it was on the last one about the landscaping parking area. It just pretty much says what things are in there. And you want me to just read the thing? Because I'll do that. And we had changed word in there, but it says parking areas shall be, and we took the word out effectively, and Victoria put it in a different spot. Parking areas shall be landscaped with trees and shrubs to effectively reduce the visual impact of glare, headlights, and parking lot lights from the public right-of-way and from adjacent properties. Then we have number 2, a minimum of 1 tree, 3-inch diameter is required for every, and we had 5 on there. We're putting 30 feet on there, I think, right? 30 feet of, every 30 feet, so we'll get the parking spaces there along the perimeter of the parking area where parking spaces are provided. We don't have to have that area, just along the perimeter of the parking area. Right? Okay, knocking that out. Now, we get to planting islands, which is what we were talking about, the interior. Planting islands consisting of linear divider islands running parallel to parking rows, and terminal islands at the ends of parking rows should be used on the interior of the parking area to define vehicular and pedestrian circulation patterns and to break up large expanses of pavement. Islands should include trees and be planted with either grass or evergreen shrubs. Then we have one linear divider island shall be provided for every, and we change that to 4 parking rows. They should be at least 10 feet wide, we change that to 9 feet wide. And with trees planted no more than 30 feet apart and at least 4 feet from curb in all directions. Then we have terminal islands should be provided at the ends of parking rows at least every 20 spaces, which seems to be the norm, 20 spaces, they don't go beyond that usually. And contain 1 tree for islands terminating a single row of spaces and 2 trees for islands terminating a double row of parking spaces. Number 4, the total square footage of the parking area shall be used to calculate the landscape open space requirement for the interior of the parking area and shall apply to the linear divider and terminal islands. So
incorporating what we just,
pretty much what we're talking about, we have parking lots for, let's see, up to 100, I think is what we just said, isn't it?
50 to 100.
50 to 100 total spaces. The interior landscape open shall be 5% or more of the total parking area. Parking lots over, and we change that to 100. 100 total spaces, the interior landscape open space shall be 7% or more of the total parking area.
Should we say 50 to 99?
Whereabouts is that? Oh, 50 to 99 in the,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's just to, all right, let's do that.
Or 101,
Yeah.
whichever.
Yeah, let's go to 100 and then 101. Okay, better. And then 101 on up. So, does that nail it?
Yes.
In light of Mr. Lester's comment, should we change the 3-inch caliber tree to 2.5? Just because.
Now, let's leave it at 3 because, yeah, I don't know, I'm sure you can get
next year.
3 inch, yeah. Yeah, it will be 3 next year,
They're gonna
right?
grow, so.
I think we ought to leave it at 3. We use 3 in there a lot, and also, yeah, if it's 2.5, then it probably is 2.5, like Richard was saying, 2x4, you know. It's supposed to be 2x4, it's not. So, but I was, well, what's the rest of the board think? I would say leave it at 3. Anybody else?
Maybe 3.
3.
You have to leave it at 3, because you know what, if he puts 2.5 in, who's gonna go measure them?
Well, we say 2.5, and then he says, well, you can only get them 2 inches.
Yeah, so we leave it at 3.
Okay.
Could I just,
Yep.
a point of clarification, percent of total parking area? So I feel like we need to define what the total parking area is, whether it
Sure do.
includes interior access, the access to the street, or if it's exclusively the area of the parking spaces, because that,
Total parking
From my
area,
position, if-
including driving lanes or access lanes.
including driving lanes and access to the street.
Yeah, but again, that goes out to the street, you know, I wonder if we ought to work in just a per space in there, because that
I think we're
nails it down.
referencing the 50 to 100 and 101 and up.
Use the
Just use
spaces
the spaces.
themselves.
why not use the, as a definition, the edge, the outer edge of the parking area? Be it from going across the front of the building, but from where the parking actually starts to the, let's say, left-hand side, to the back side, to the right-hand side, calculating that as your square footage,
Curb face to curb face.
basically, yes.
Still is up for interpretation by how code, as we've seen before.
Maybe we can have a drawing.
We could have a drawing, you know, the drawing is always good having there, but are we gonna cover every scenario in there? Although the planning board, when the planning board sees it and it doesn't match what the planning board wants, then they have to change it, do what the planning board wants.
Well, a big question that has come up with recent applications has been the inclusion of access lanes in that total percentage. And the access lanes in parking lots can be very different amounts of paved area. And so, I mean, maybe distinguish between driveway and parking lot access lanes, and you can exclude the driveway, but include the parking lot interior access lanes. Or don't, but,
Can you define access to, delivery and pedestrian? Because you have an access lane coming in Market Basket and it continues to the back side of the building. That, to me, should not be, need to be included.
Shouldn't be, yeah, I wouldn't think so.
The access for pedestrian into the parking area should be. So you define it that way.
Excluding entrance and exit driveways. Because Market Basket has a nice little driveway going in, and you're not including that in your parking area.
So the first parking space, it seems to be.
It seems like that really simplifies.
Yes.
It does work, you know, as far as when you calculate it out with either the 7% or the 5%, it works either way. It's just that you're using, of course, a different figure. You're using square footage per space as opposed to percentage of total square footage. And those again were, let's see, I had it broken up into 3 areas there though. Because we're using just 2, but we're going 50 to 100, 101 and beyond. So 50 to 100 was 10 square feet of internal green space per parking space. 50 to 100 spaces. And then I had broken up 15 square feet for 100, 250 and 20 square feet. What if we then put 100 spaces and over just the 20 square feet? 20 square feet per parking space. Well, we could, it brings out a little tight.
Compact car parking spots, how do you deal with that?
No, you deal with it by, we have a 162 square foot parking space requirement in our regulations. They can't go smaller.
Okay, we don't have compact,
No, we don't, just 162, so I use the 162 to do it out. So.
Then you get somebody with like truck like mine that comes in and takes up 2 of your little car spaces. And what do you do about it? Then what do you do about it?
Let's.
You get angry people is what you get.
Is it wrong to have the 3 tiers? I mean, if it works.
The 3 tiers works. We just had the 2 tiers in, I think I just had 2 tiers up in this one here, and I think that's why we went with the 2 tiers. We could put the 3 tiers in there for that type of space.
what was the tiers?
The tiers were 50 to 100 spaces, 10 square feet per space for internal green space. Then we had 100 to 150, 100 to 250 spaces. Actually, it would have been 101 to 250 spaces, 15 square foot per space. Then we had 251 and on 20 square feet per space. You want to just use that?
I like that.
If we use that, then we just have to modify this.
Then you're gonna get rid of the travel lanes, you get rid of all that stuff and having to worry about it.
Out of the calculation.
Yeah.
You still have traffic lanes in there and
Right.
access lanes, but.
Right, that's what I mean.
Nobody even
Right.
uses them.
You can't use it to calculate, no,
No.
whether they're small or big or whatever.
Right,
it is, you have
that's
to
what I'm saying.
minimum of 160.
Yes, it simplifies it very much.
So let's use a 3-tier then, and Sarah,
Repeat them for me.
yeah,
please.
let
I
me
got
read.
the first one.
Okay, so you've got the 50 to 100 spaces,
That's 10 square feet.
it's 20
per
square feet
space.
per,
Right.
yeah. Okay. 101 to 250 spaces is 15 square feet per parking space of internal green space we're talking about. And 250 spaces on up would be 20 square feet per parking space.
51.
Yeah, 251.
Would be how much again?
It would be 20 square feet
20, okay.
per parking space of internal green space.
Right.
And if Sarah, then you could just change that part of it down there just to accommodate to whatever that is.
Because for access lane, you guys can also like add specific more stuff on the driveways if you want that. But not tonight.
No, you don't have to take up everything, Scott. I think Sarah wants to go home.
So I
That you
think we
To go to like that.
kind of nailed it down. So let's go with that. We can, I think that's about the entire site plan review regulations that we've done over. So we might be ready for the actual final copy and then a public hearing. Review one more time.
I sent you an email today, which might throw a wrench in that.
Okay.
So just another little thing you guys might want to review about the 30-day period, when approval actually occurs and the 30-day appeal period, because there's been a case in the Supreme Court Sergio versus Dover, I believe. I emailed it to Scott right before the meeting to be like, maybe we should discuss this and make sure that our regulations make this really, really, really abundantly clear when the 30-day appeal period begins. After, it doesn't begin with a conditional approval, doesn't begin with a full approval, yada, yada, yada. So, I think we should revisit.
Yeah, we probably should. I haven't read your email yet, so
I figured you wouldn't have.
we'll take a look at that at our next meeting and make sure, but everything else I think we've probably got nailed down.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
So what does our next meeting look like besides this case that we got in front of us now?
The next meeting also has, a new property owner in town wants to convert the trade-in building, 135 Old Homestead. She wants to expand an existing approved use of the property to make a beauty salon essentially, and she's on the agenda for other business to determine, for you to determine if you'll require a site plan modification, site plan review, or what level of review she needs to do to expand the use of a hairdresser. So it's really just gonna be looking at her revised parking plan and whether or not that's gonna rise to a public hearing. And lesser and this stuff.
Doesn't sound too bad then. We could have
It's only as bad as you make it.
We'll have another motion at the beginning anyway, Sarah.
That's right.
There's
All
a
right.
barber shop in that building now anyway, the CEA.
Yep.
Vacuum, insurance sales, something.
Something like that. I think there has also been a tattoo parlor there, but I'm not sure if the tattoo parlor is gonna be able to stay there as a, maybe it was one that wanted to come in. I don't know. It's near the airport, 135.
Like the big white building, yeah, that's what's been turning over and turning over.
One more thing while we're still on the site plan regs, is the consensus to use Victoria's, paragraph about the purpose of the site plan review regulations in place of that one that's that long in our original one.
Yeah, I think
I think it is
the
too.
purpose, the purpose should be as short and concise as it can be.
Okay, so get rid of that, John.
So the second paragraph ends.
Second one there,
One.
yeah, that one there, we'll put in Victoria's.
Is Victoria's paragraph already contained in the first paragraph? Right?
Oh, actually, it might be, yeah, should we just take those out and put, if we could take that out and just put Victoria's in.
Okay, so take out
Take
both
out
number
the
one
whole-
and
whole
two.
thing, just
Okay.
Victoria's.
Yeah.
Pages of,
Yeah,
Page two.
yeah, page two.
What section? is it?
Oh,
So
we're-
I can just look in the
It's the
section.
very beginning of the site plan review regulations,
Okay.
it's a purpose section,
Okay.
or we just have the
Got it.
purpose of them. Okay, so brings us to plan reading workshop. Now, I brought the plans with me, we have a couple of minutes here, I'm not gonna be long with it, just gonna go over, if anybody's interested, if not, we can postpone it to another meeting. I had, gonna explain the contours on the maps there, they're kind of convoluted to understand, you're looking at a map, you see all these weird lines there with the contours on there, numbers and stuff on there. And I brought a prop with me to demonstrate what it is, what we're looking at there. So it'll only take a couple of minutes. We got it.
Let's do it.
So I'll bring it
Sarah,
on.
Route 12, want to be extended? Is there any movement on that? I don't see anything going on.
Working on their fire discussion. Because they didn't realize that the systems were involved, because they filed the project and didn't necessarily read everything. It's part of it, isn't it?
Voice might know a lot of. Yeah, just go by there every once in a while, and see what's going on. Yeah, that was my thought too, yeah.
They're already,
About
because you
6
guys
months.
already said that they have established active residential development. And raising development.
But still at the house. Yeah, they can't have forever, right?
Kind of feel like,
Well, I don't, yeah.
We're talking about the contour lines. And I think we reviewed them before, and that they're marked off feet above the sea level. And it tells us pretty much, because over here, and I don't need to see it. Because it's feet above sea level in it, and it shows us what the land does in there. Because again, these are the flat drawings here, and you can't really tell much from it without that. So what it is that we require every 5 feet. This is done every 1 foot. We require every 5 feet. So it's like you're going down 5 feet and taking a cross section of that land across there. And here comes, this is what the prop is. So this right here, this will say the hill right there, and it fits. It fits right there. I drew it on it. Staples sign, so it's that. So that's the sign. Oh, right there, right. So we cut off 5 feet of it like that. We see the contour. That's what we're seeing right there. That contour. So if you watch the thing, it'll tell you where a valley is, and it'll tell you where, we'll say, a peak is. So we're looking at this contour line. It's going away from the high point. The high point starts in the center. Or watch where your high point starts. It doesn't really start in the center, but most of the time it does. So in this case, the high point is in the center. So as you can see, the line is going away from the center. That means there's a ridge there. Now the line is coming back towards the center. In this loop here, that means there's a valley. As you can see, there's a valley right there. And then going away, another ridge, and around the slope, and another valley in there. And same way with that. You know, looking in the same way, we're taking another slice off like that, look like this. There's that one there. Trace them again there. So again, the high point is here. As you follow it around, you're going away from the high point, so you know that's a crown. And then you're coming back toward the center. You know it's dipped in, so you're looking at the land exactly from above as we're looking here. And you're seeing that, say in this drawing right here, we're watching where our high point is. Our high points are up in here, like 500 feet.
So that's where you
501.
start, you find the highest, what you are
To
treating.
make sense of it, I do, yeah, to make sense of it, you look where the high points are, and then you can tell if the line is coming in toward the high point, then it's a valley. If the line is going away from the high point, then it's a high point or a valley.
Show one, so here's.
So here, right here. So here's 501 right there, yeah, 503, so we're high over here. And that's 501 right there, that's 500, so we're coming in towards it, so there's a valley down there.
Okay.
So now you see the thing pointing that way, going away from it, so that means that there's a ridge going there. Now it's coming back this way, it's another valley, so the land is going in and out like that. So that's how you read these with a little bit of practice.
How much is flat elevation?
It is flat, that's just what it's for, and you can see here, I trace these, and you can see that when it comes in here, there's a valley, because you can, right to this piece right here, there's a valley right there, and then going away from it, there's a crown. And again, you're above these drawings, and it's like they took a slice right of it. And, you know, in our regulations, we talk about 5% slope and 25% slope. And nobody knows what the hell a 5% slope is or 25% slope, but you know, you can't put a protractor on these, it's the only thing, you don't really know what it is, but with these drawings, you can tell how steep the land is or what the slope is. It's, the percentage is, the 25% slope is a 25-foot drop in 100 feet across. So if you're measuring 100 feet, you've dropped 25 feet. If you got a 5% slope, you've dropped 5 feet in 100 feet. So that's a slope right there. And so you can measure on these where that is. So you get the scale. Again, you look at, always check the scale. 40 right there. Take your engineer scale there. And let's see, this is pretty flat right here. So we've got, that's about 20 feet. There's 10, 20, there's 20 feet and a 1 foot drop. So 20 into 100 is 5. 5 times 1 is 5. So that's 5%. We can tell from the drawing it's a 5% slope right there. And we can do the same with these. We can measure out, see what they are like. This one is, that looks 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. Let's get a steeper. We can drop this on. That doesn't matter. That's the prop. So we've got, these are 1 foot intervals. So I'm saying 40 feet. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. There's 20 feet. There are 5 drops. There's 5 feet there. So again, 20 into 100 is 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. So you've got a 25% slope right there. lines right
So,
there.
I don't know whether this is up or down, that's what I never.
It's, yeah, that's the confusing part about it, is because, see, this is 490, and that's 94, so this is higher than that is. So you know, looking at that little example,
Mhm.
you know that's a high point right in there. 494, drop those 493, so you're going away from it, like so. So, let's see, the contour line, actually it's an abrupt contour line here, you're coming right to a standpoint right there and going down. This is a poor example to show that, because the land drops off considerably down here, as you can see, it's very steep, and it's going that way, it's not going up, it's going away from.
How do I know
Your
that it's
center.
going?
Well, you know it because these contour lines, 490 goes
Yeah.
there, and then it turns a corner and goes all the way, that's still 490 right there.
Okay.
All the way through there, and it'll come out on the other side, 490 right there.
Okay,
So you know that that's 490, you know that's 494, so you know that's a valley.
okay.
You know that's getting pretty low pretty fast too. 25% I think is our maximum that you can develop on.
It's my brain.
But yeah, I know it's confusing to see them like that.
I'll tell you guys all the cheat.
Okay.
If you glance at a plan and you see the lines are really close together, you know something's happening there and you request more information.
You ask the engineer.
This is the line.
You ask the engineer. That's right.
There's no lines anywhere on it, you're in the Great Salt Lake.
Exactly. Exactly.
But just keep in mind, if the line is going away from your highest area there, then you know it's outcropping. If the line is coming back towards the high area.
Here's my highest point, and the line is going away.
Yeah,
from
so
that
here's
line?
your highest point here, so the line is coming to it a little bit like that, so that's a low area there. Now the line is going away from it, it's coming this way, so that's a little bit higher right there. But again, this is so flat, it's a tough one to go by. But you go here, the line is going away from this higher area, so that's a plane, that's this area here.
I'm thinking about Larry Coach's, remember the green space in the middle that was like a mountain with surrounded by all that,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I couldn't picture that at the time. That would be a really good one to
That'd be
look
a
at,
good one,
right?
yeah, it'd be something like that, right,
Yeah,
quite steep.
yeah.
I think they should have you talk to the kids over at the high school.
I think so too.
They need this kind of thing.
They do need this kind of.
Well, for God's
First
sake,
of all,
right?
most of them are gonna learn how to read and write
Hunting,
first.
You want to stay on that.
It'd be nice if you knew it, you know, getting the concept.
Yeah, but what-
Topographic.
But you end up teaching the kids that you.
Again, it's just something to think of, Ronald's to the deadline that the mindset up for. And let's spend some time with any of these drawings as they come up to our planning board, and you get just used to how they work. And it's, there's a lot more on it that we'll go through. We'll get into the drainage and how to read the everts and all that type of stuff in there, which is pretty interesting too. It'll tell us a lot of stuff we need to know.
We can always
time-
ask you with it, we can always ask you to.
You can, but you won't know if I'm telling you the truth or not.
No.
So, that's it for today.
Who's got the apple for the tea?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn for the evening.
There's a motion to adjourn by Steve. Is there any other business come before the board? Anybody? Then a motion to adjourn by Steve. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Richard. Any further discussion? All those in favor, indicate